When I say the words psychological warfare, what comes to mind? Is it something like wartime propaganda, or maybe A Clockwork Orange? In Isaac Asimov's Second Foundation, psychological warfare takes the form of a select group of elite scientists who can manipulate your mental and emotional wavelengths by suddenly intervening into your mind when it's most vulnerable. This book is the grand finale of Asimov's Foundation series. I started reading it about 2 months ago, and I've been hard-pressed to put it down. I really like this book. It's the curtain closing on an already fantastic voyage through space and colonies. So here are some things to keep in mind. The premise of the Foundation series is that of preserving the legacy of humanity in an age of inevitable barbarism. I haven't used that word in a while. Inevitable. The mainline stories take us through several epics. Did I say that right? Epochs? Well, several periods throughout the galaxy's life cycle, and you're taken to different worlds and you meet different characters along the way, all of which detail a different period in which members of Harry Seldon's Foundation are fighting to preserve that vision of humanity. And Harry Seldon was this leading psychosocial scientist. And he could predict the future. And he established 2 foundations. It was part of his prophecy. One would be a foundation of scientists purely, who are physical scientists, and the other would be mental scientists, those of the second foundation. And they would be placed at an opposite end of the galaxy. Other than that, though, the second foundation goes almost entirely without mention throughout the first 2 books. The third book presents them in an interesting light. And they make their presence aware in terms of major conflicts that are carried over from the previous book, Foundation and Empire. Now, originally I thought it would be a little too hard to do a review on this book without going into spoiler territory, but I think I can. What I'll say is that with Second Foundation, it picks up the pace and the slack from Foundation and Empire where it ends. So it almost feels like you didn't even start a new book. You're still reading part of this legacy that happened. Like the other one didn't really end on a clear note, and Second Foundation just puts you right back in the action. And those first 100 pages were so good, I think I finished them within the first week of April. They were almost too good. After those first 100 pages, I had trouble buying into the next part of the story. And so that was my biggest hurdle with this book, is pages 100 through 145 or 150 required a bit of a mental investment, one which I was making throughout the previous books, because it's not like it's the first time I had to meet new characters. But it was the first time that something so climactic had happened in the series. And so I had a little bit of trouble with that. I pushed through, and I'm so glad I did. The book just takes some wild turns, especially in how it presents the second foundation. I don't want to go too much into plot or, narrative details. The plot reminds me a bit of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but what I want to say is that it's a little better. So with Invasion of the Body Snatchers, an alien species came down and took over human hosts. And the second foundation is similar in a way, but it's not identical. And you are left questioning who are second foundationers and what are their motives. Nothing was clear cut for me, but the most exciting part of the book was finding out more as I went along and then going back and rereading same sections over with the new information in mind. So there is part of a learning curve in that you have to go back a little bit to make sure you get all of the new characters and the planets down. But once you've hit that, the book just becomes so much more rewarding, as does the series. Because I found several moments, especially in the previous book, Foundation and Empire, to be equally rewarding. Now, there are 3 or 4 more books in this series, but this was originally intended as a trilogy. These books were pretty much written back to back, I think year for year. And while I do want to read the other books in the series, it was clear to me that by the end of this book, Asimov had written it as a consecutive piece of art that just, I don't want to say ends nicely with a bow tie by the end of the third book, but that pretty much has told its tale by the time it's done. The only reason he kept writing them is because his audience pressured him to do so. With that being said, if you read the first 3 books back to back, I feel like you're in for a very rewarding experience. There's a lot to this series that makes it so rich and so rewarding. I do want to go back and reread all of them. These main 3 anyway. But I want to do it a little differently next time. I actually want to keep a little log book alongside it. But this series has really treated me. It's such a drastic departure from the first book I started this year off with, just because of how deep and how much of an emotional investment it is. Like, I committed myself to these books, and I really enjoyed reading them. I didn't read them as fast as I've read other series like the Lord of the Rings or the Harry Potters or the Golden Compass, but I still loved my time with it. And I think if you're looking for a great science fiction, fantasy style look at human affairs, that you really would be treating yourself to some great books if you do the Foundation series. I'm just so glad that I got to really enjoy these to the fullest. And, they'll be here for me too when I need them. That's my April book talk. Hope you enjoyed. I tried to keep it light on spoilers, and I think I did all right. So let me know what you thought and if you're interested in reading any Asimov. See you later.